Sky's Fury.
Hey buddies, Mr. Puggy here, coming at you with another Borderlands 3 video. Today we're actually going to be showing you a new interaction I saw with the Peregrine class mod mixed with the Ghast Call. The Peregrine class mod seems to do exceptionally well with the Ghast Call due to its weird ricocheting nature and seemingly almost infinite ability to summon skulls. Sometimes you'll be throwing out the Rakks and you'll occasionally hit the Ghast Call just right, and skulls seem to just keep spawning and spawning and spawning, but they do stop eventually, but it's like seems near infinite and you never know when it's going to stop. Sometimes it seems really random on how many it spawns. I'm not really sure what affects it, but nevertheless, let's get right into the build. Like I said before, we use the Peregrine class mod to allow our Rakks to throw out a grenade every time we hit an enemy, and as many of you know, the Peregrine class mod seems to deal exceptionally more damage with the grenades than just throwing them. Like before, we were trying our Light Show plus Peregrine, and it seemed to spawn 4 Peregrine ricochets all at once. Now, I'm not sure if the Ghast Call is spawning multiple times when we throw it with Peregrine. I'm personally not seeing it spawn multiple times, but it does spawn a ton of skulls there, so there's some type of weird interaction that's happening. Not 100% certain what's happening with that, but we also use the trick Unforgiven. This Unforgiven has 432 critical hit damage. That allows us to deal crazy amounts of damage when our Ghast Call triggers our Megavore. Megavore can trigger when the skulls hit the enemies, so you'll occasionally see crits pop up. So that 432% more crit damage really helps when those skulls hit for the crits. We also run a Corrosive Old God for more corrosive damage, and we use on action skill and bonus corrosive damage to just go all in on the corrosive damage. We do that because Ghast Call seems to only spawn with corrosive damage, so that allows us to just deal crazy amounts of damage. And we also use an elemental projector deathless because I like to use a little trick with the hazardous sellout. Now with the hazardous sellout is it's a great gun that is used by the community to light yourself on fire. Now another option you can use is use it to start putting a corrosive dot on yourself. This corrosive dot will allow us to activate Elemental Projector, thus increasing our damage by 2.17 times more damage. So all we need to do is just switch over to our corrosive sellout, just shoot our feet once and we'll instantly have the dot on us, and then you can throw out as many grenades as you want with the boost damage. We use a Deathless because the trick Unforgiven that we actually have is a URAD. The reason why I use the URAD anointment is because I've been playing with the Peregrine class mod for so long, and I found that you can deal the most amount of damage if you just use a trick Unforgiven with a URAD anointment. I've been playing this build for a long time. I beat Malawon and the Guardian takedown without shooting any bullets, so I'm pretty well versed with this build, and I found this anointment to be the best. It'd be better if we could use the Splash anointment, but the trick Unforgiven can't spawn that, which I learned. Someone on Reddit pointed that out to me. But it seems to just deal crazy amounts of damage. The way it just hits big targets, it seems to be able to spawn a lot of skulls when we hit those big targets. Sometimes when you throw out the Rakk attacks, they'll hit a smaller enemy, and it doesn't spawn as many skulls as it would if it hit a enemy with a larger health pool. Not really sure why, but it just seems enemies with larger health pools allow the Ghast Call to trigger more often, or maybe just the skulls react in a certain way. I have no idea why it happens this way, but if you're looking to hit someone, try to hit the biggest health pool in the group. As you guys saw earlier, I was actually able to one-shot Grave Ward with just a couple of Ghast Calls and a Rakk attack because of this crazy build. So basically what I did is I ran up there, waited for him to put his arm down so we can, hit his crit spot, and I switched over to the sellout, shot my feet once to activate the corrosive dot for the elemental projector bonus damage, and I just threw out my Rakks, threw a couple of Ghast Calls, and his health bar just instantly depleted. It was absolutely insane. And we're also able to one-shot Trant, as you guys saw earlier as well. This build just seems to be able to kill like anything you want with it. Just with one Rakk attack, just does crazy amounts of damage. And the Rakk attacks themselves also deal a couple million damage as well. You can use cryo or fire. Personally, I like fire. One tip I want to give everyone that wants to do the Peregrine class mod. Peregrine class mod's grenades deal more damage when you have Flock and Load. Now, I'm not really sure why, but there seems to be a damage multiplier based on how many Rakks you summon with the Rakk attack. So if you use Flock and Load, it summons an additional 2 Rakks, which allows you to deal more damage because there's more Rakks on the screen. I guess the game takes that into calculation when you deal damage with it. I'm not really sure why. Always make sure to have Flock and Load on for the additional Rakks. So if you ever switch to Corrosive, make sure you get rid of Rakk Celebrate, because that just is another skill charge. And you don't really need the skill charge because of how many times we're hitting critical hits and killing the enemies. The more times we hit critical hits, we're actually able to activate Head Count. And what Head Count does is allows Flak action skill cooldown to be reduced when we hit the critical hits. And that's very useful for reloading our Rakk attacks very, very fast. And also we use the Eager to Impress, which on every single kill it reduces our cooldown as well, so we're able to just keep on sending out Rakks because you're going to be killing enemies left and right constantly. Try to get yourself a Vindicator Ghast Call as well. There's a couple variants of Ghast Calls, but Vindictor, it seems the Vandictor one is the best one because it has Divider and Reuter. I'll remind you guys later, but I'll just tell you now, if you guys are looking for the Vindictor Ghast Call, you can farm it all you want, but if you're on PC, you can just use the save file. I have a link down below in the description and comments, so if you guys just don't want to have to farm for it, just go into my save file and take it from there. But let's continue. We went to the Christina Slaughter to just try out all the damage we can deal, and we're just killing enemies left and right. The only problem we have is the Rakks, because the skulls actually travel pretty slowly, so the flying enemies or fast enemies aren't your best bet with the Ghast Call, so you're a little bit at a disadvantage there. You can easily just switch to a weapon that shoots really, really fast and just kill them, or like, I don't know, use a launcher, anything you want, but we're pretty much able to kill any enemy we want. We killed the Dominator really, really quickly, and then we also killed the Giant Rex, the end boss of the Christina Slaughter, in just one Rakk attack as well. His health bar went immediately down in 1 second. It was crazy. And then I'm not using any crazy Mayhem modifiers at all. I'm just using Big Kick Energy, Healing Avenger, Chain Gang, and Postmortem, you know, common modifiers you see on like any build. And my Guardian ranks aren't even filled out all the way, but I'm still able to deal crazy amounts of damage. The only one that we're missing is Let Her Alive, but that's just reloads our guns automatically in Fight for Your Life, so we don't really need that. Anyways, for this build, personally, I like to use the Spider Ant Scorcher because it gives us 10% more elemental damage, and 10% might not seem like a lot, but when you're dealing millions of damage, that's just an extra 100,000 on top of that. So I like to have the Scorcher out at all times. You're able to clear any boss you want with this, except for maybe General Trant, because General Trant does resist corrosive damage, but any enemy that doesn't resist corrosive damage just immediately gets taken down with this build. The Rakks deal millions of damage, each skull does millions of damage, and then we have the U-Rat Anointment, which just increases our damage by a crap ton, and those radiations causes, you know, the debuff, which allows them to explode, so you can even get a radiation explosion to deal tons of damage as well. You're just doing tons of damage left and right, and the Unforgiven we have is also a bladed Unforgiven, so if you want to, you could actually smack someone and kill them instantly as long as you're hitting someone before, due to the Groundbreaker ability that allows us to deal crazy amounts of melee damage based on how much damage you were doing before. You could probably even boost your damage more than what I have if you were to get a artifact with Flesh Melter, and what Flesh Melter does is boost your damage whenever you kill an enemy with corrosive, and it's not just like a small increase, it's a pretty substantial increase, so you could probably increase your damage by a decent amount there. But I personally like to use the Elemental Projector more because, you know, you can have an on-demand damage boost whenever you want with the sellout by just shooting your feet once. You know, you can boost your damage by a little bit more than the Flesh Melter can do. But if you don't want to have to ever switch to the sellout, you could always just get a Deathless Flesh Melter. Build is really, really fun because corrosive is a really fun dot because of the melt chances that you can get. And you don't often see corrosive being used in a lot of builds, so it's kind of fun that Ghast Calls gives us the opportunity to actually use the corrosive element. It's kind of a forgotten about element, I feel, in the game, so it's really fun to actually be able to use it and still deal crazy amounts of damage. I'm using true Vault Hunter mode, so the damage we deal on flesh enemies with corrosive damage is actually a lot less than you would with regular normal mode, because the effective chance of each element does change when you go to true Vault Hunter mode. You can search it up on Mental Mars. There's a really nice chart they have. I'll actually show it on the screen real quick, but I recommend going to their website if you actually want to see the chart and examine it. But it's very useful. It always helps me choosing what mode to do depending depending on what build I'm using. But I use True Vault Hunter mode because I was too lazy to switch it. But if you're in a normal mode, you actually deal a lot more damage than I was doing on the screen here. We weren't fighting a lot of enemies with armor, so we didn't really get to see the extra bonus damage we deal against armor enemies with corrosive. But it doesn't really matter since we're one-shotting every single enemy anyways, and it's just Megavor's crit with the trick Unforgiven, with the U-Rad, with the Elemental Projector, everything unstacked on top of it just increases our damage to like super duper high amounts. It's just crazy how many multipliers we have with this build that allows us to just deal crazy amounts of damage. And for all y'all wanting, here is our build. We primarily spec into the fire tree and the green tree. The main point you really need to worry about with this build is the head count. As I said before, Megavore and Eager to Impress. Everything else that you pick don't really matter too much. You could spec into something that helps gun damage a little bit more if you wanted to, but this build's primarily for just sending out a bunch of racks, so that's what I like to do. If you guys want, you can modify it however you like. If you guys want to see any of my other builds, I have a Peregrine plus Lightspeed combination that's absolutely broken as well. Click up here for that, and I also did a Zane build with the Hustler. We actually made it good, since it's actually a pretty terrible class mod. We finally found the good aspect to that. It can instant freeze everything in its path. And we also did a 50-50 Moe's Flare build where we deal tons of damage in Iron Bear and tons of damage out of Iron Bear. So if you want to see any of that, just click up there. And for any of those that you want to try this build out, just use the save file I have down below. It'll be in the comments and description. If it doesn't work, just tell me. It should work. But that's all I have for today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him up with a moxie melt till he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. More in a cave with a torch on the wall than a window arrangement of porcelain dolls.